Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for being here on the Make Time for Success podcast. Today, I have an amazing speaker, author, business coach, and business owner as my special guest. Her name is Kim Kelley Thompson. Kelley is with two E's. We were just getting through with that and making sure we're prepared for the episode. And I have already been speaking with Kim for years, I would say. We've been trying to arrange a sharing of podcast episodes and getting to know each other better. And I'm so grateful that she's agreed to be on the show. Today, we're going to focus on how to understand how and where you might be blocking yourself from success. So, Kim, I can't wait to get going with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Let me first say that I love the name of your podcast because I
Oh,
think it's
thank
so
you.
important to make time for success, because I think a lot of times we're just hustle, 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 go, go, go in whatever areas. And we just don't think like, okay, maybe I just need to pull back, get into the flow, and actually allow myself to feel that success. So I love that. I love the title of your show.
Well, thank you so much. And that reminds me, when we were trying to prepare for this episode, the fact that we're together and creating these episodes now is not a coincidence, because Kim is preparing for the launch of her new podcast, which is called Shift or
Get
Get
off
Off.
the pot.
There we go. I want to be careful as I say that. So shift or get off the pot. And I encourage all of my listeners to start listening to Kim's show. She's such a dynamic speaker, has been a professional speaker, and is a professional speaker. And I can't wait to get into our conversation today. And good luck with the podcast launch.
Oh, thank you so much. A little tongue in cheek there, but it's kind of my personality. It's kind of like, look, you're going to do it or you're not going to do it.
All
Which,
right.
I think is what we all kind of go through in life, right? In different areas. Like we have all these different ideas or goals or things that we want to do. And then, life's busy, right? So, you're just living life and going, oh, but I want to do this, or I want to do that. And myself, I'm the kind of person that have so many ideas and so many things that I want to get to. But then, sometimes it's like, there's just only so much time. And so it's like, okay, what's really going to be my priority and where am I going to put my focus so that I can achieve something?
Okay. I love that. How did you get to be an expert in this area? Let's start there.
My own personal, my own personal self, my own goals and things that I wanted to achieve, but then I could see very clearly where I was stopping myself short. And for a variety of reasons, when early on I got into sales and I excelled in sales. I was very good at sales. It was very easy for me. I loved it. I loved it, I think, primarily because I liked the idea of being in charge of my own time and my own, basically writing my own paycheck. And so I thought, okay, well, the amount of effort I put into this, obviously a certain amount of money I can get back. And so I looked at that and I thought, okay, I was really focused. And then funny thing happened. My clients started to hire me to start training their sales teams. And as I did that, I also got very much involved in personal development because I started to understand how much personal development and business development go hand in hand. And that came because when I was starting in sales, I met a man named Zig Ziglar, who you will probably remember.
Yes.
And Zig Ziglar really became my first mentor. I went to a seminar of his and I was just blown away because it was different parts of really sales that I hadn't applied. It's not the practical, like overcoming objections and all these different things that you learn in sales and pattern interrupts and all of that. All of those things are important, but it was more the mindset. It was the mental activity behind it. And so I ended up talking to him and I started learning so much from him about really showing up as the person that has already achieved the goal, right? That has already delivered the goods to that client and has provided that value. And his saying, of course, was always, you can get anything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And so it was all about the value and understanding that. And so that's, I became a sales trainer and then I owned a franchise in the personal development industry and I worked those together for a long time. But then a funny thing happened that I think happens to a lot of people, a lot of women particularly, is that, I got married and that I started a family. And I just wanted to do that and nothing else. I couldn't understand, oh my gosh, how am I going to do both? I wanted to have the career because I loved it. I did love what I was doing. But when you hold that newborn in your arms, you're kind of like, life stops, right? And so my focus was there for a long time. And once my kids got a little bit older, I ended up going through a divorce later, but I needed to go back into the workspace, and I didn't quite know how to find my way back to that. And even though I knew I loved that, and I had at that time been doing the speaking for the sales training, and I knew I wanted to get back to it, I started to pull back and sell myself short because I stopped believing in my abilities in that career, because for so long I had been a stay-at-home mom and I had been taking care of my children, and I just completely kind of looked at that and didn't give myself any credibility for that, which I think a lot of women do, especially moms. I think a lot of times we don't realize just how important that is, and that really is a career. But I pulled back from that and I started to realize, whoa, I don't believe in myself. I don't know. And it took me a while to get past that through mentorship, through getting great coaching and saying, okay, what's really going on here? And how is it that I'm pulling back? Why am I doubting myself now? And then finding my way out of that, of course. But that was a process to get myself back into what I truly love doing. And I tried a few different things for a while there, mostly because two things. One, I had the very real need to provide for my family. I was divorced and I wasn't getting all the support, the financial support. My ex at the time, we're friends now, but at the time he was going through some struggles. And so I became the provider, and I was like, oh, how am I going to handle all this? How am I going to juggle it all? And so, I was trying different things, but all roads will eventually lead you back, I believe, to what your true purpose is in life and what you are meant to do. And I think that we all tend to know it on some level, but we just keep pushing it aside. And I did for a long time. And so that led me into this path of, okay, what is it that people do to hold themselves back? And then I got into NLP, of course, to go along with the personal development that I had been studying and doing for years. And so all of that kind of brought me into this line of work.
Okay, so for those who don't know NLP, could you describe what that is?
Neuro-linguistic programming. And so it's really understanding really the behaviors and the habits and the language and the things that we are saying to ourselves and the way that we are showing up for ourselves and how we're interacting also, not just with our own selves, with other people too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Can you describe what kind of behaviors you were doing when you returned to work after having the kids and after being a stay-at-home mom that signaled to you, I'm not fully believing in myself, that were signs that you're holding yourself back somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. I went back into sales because I knew that if I went, first of all, I loved sales. I did, and I was good at it. And I also knew that if I went into sales, I could have some freedom and flexibility to be present to my kids because, I had to pick them up from school. I had to get them to dance lessons. I had to do certain things like that. Right. But what was happening is that I went into sales and I was making the money in sales, and that was great. But there was this just disconnect inside of myself. And I knew it. I felt it. And I mean, I would lay in bed at night and I felt like I had this brick on my chest. And I think, what is going on here? And I mean, I remember begging God, just, okay, let me breathe again. Like, do not take me. I got, too much to go on here. I've got my kids. And it was this awakening that just made me say, okay, look, you're not doing what you really want to do. You want to get back into helping others, doing some of the trainings and the speaking, and the things that I had done before. But I was going down the sales path because it did provide for me, it provided for our family, and it gave me some of that, a little bit of that flexibility. I mean, there were, client dinners and lunches and all that, but I realized that I was kind of losing myself in that process, and it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call to say, look, you have a choice. You either continue down this road and you just live your life like that, or you make a decision to actually go after your dreams. And I will tell you, it's a very scary place because there is a time where It's almost like I could look at myself in the mirror and say, can I see myself just walking away from what I think I want to do and go down this path? And there was a part of me that would say, oh, it'd be easy. Yeah, I could. And it was easier. I was making money and, things were taken care of. But there's a danger in that. I think there's a danger in that because when things are like that, it's harder to kind of get yourself just ignited to move forward somewhere else. And so that became a little bit of a fear that made me say, whoa, am I ready to give this up, or am I ready to pursue my dreams? And then I had 4 children looking at me. And that was my big driving force. It really was, because I looked at them and I thought, if I don't do this, what am I teaching my kids? You just go through life and you just go because you're making the money. So, okay, we've got all these other things, even though your soul is screaming, because when your soul is screaming at you, it comes out in other ways. You're dissatisfied. There's other areas in your life that now you start to see that start crumbling because you're not stepping into what you're really truly meant to do. So it was more or less paying attention to those signs, and honestly, those wake up calls at night. I mean, I literally would be like, I can't breathe, and go, what's going on? So it was just paying attention.
Thank you for sharing those details, and how powerful your body was signaling to you, and your soul was signaling to you that there's something that you need to look at. And I am wondering how many of our listeners are going through something like that. Maybe it's a little less intense, maybe it's more intense, maybe the symptoms are different or the signs are different, but that they're at a crossroads or they're in a transition space and they don't necessarily know how to evaluate what the options are, and they don't know whether to take the leap or to stay maybe the safer route. Do you have a way to help people to make sense of all of that and to stay calm in the process of making sense of all this?
I do. I think, number one, I think that you have to open your ears and your eyes to pay attention to little signs that are coming up. And you will get little signs because anytime we ask, we will get an answer. We just don't always pay attention. And so it could come in the form of somebody, saying something to you. It could just be like, in my case, I would have some of my clients say, wow, you should be doing this. Why aren't you doing this? You'd be so good at that. You'd be, all these different little things. And I'd be like, I know. And I would feel it. That's the other thing. Pay attention to what people are saying to you and then see where you feel it in your body, because our bodies will always respond a lot of times before our minds will, right? And you'll feel it. So for me, I would feel something where I'd be like, oh, almost like somebody would say something like, wow, you should be doing this. You'd be so good at this. Right. And I would feel this, oh, like this little, just this pang almost. And it would always be usually around my heart. And I would say, okay, that's telling me that I'm not in love with what I'm doing, and so you have to recognize that. So pay attention to what people are saying to you, what you're feeling in the moment and where it's hitting you in your body, because that's a telltale sign right there of that maybe you're not truly on the path that you are meant to be on. And that's why you're feeling a little bit of this dissatisfaction. Also, pay attention to what's going on in your daily life. Are you getting, more tired or tired more frequently? Are you finding yourself just not following through with things? And a lot of times that happens because we're out of alignment. We're not where we want to be. Are you creating these projects for yourself that are just keeping you busy and busy and busy just so you don't have to think? And so it's just making sure that you pay attention to those things and then make a list. I think if we do a self-assessment, I take people through a 5-step process, and it's called SHIFT. And it starts with one, the self-assessment. And that's what we're talking about right now. It's that self-assessment so that you can say, well, I'm going to be really honest about what's showing up for me. Again, mine obviously was that, you can't deny not being able to breathe at night, but, but, but when you do that, it's a clear indicator of what the thoughts are and then what some of those beliefs are, because then that leads us to H, the habits. And then when we can take a look at that and we go, what are my habits? And how is that dictating my actions? Because it's those habits, right, that dictate the actions. And so then when you look at that, you have a much clearer picture of what's going on in your life, what's showing up for you. Once you've got that, then from the habits, you can go, okay, now that I know all that, now I can set a clear intention that's going to be more in alignment with what I really want. Because I think the problem that a lot of people have is that this has been my experience in for my own self, but working with clients as well, is that we all come into this world, I believe, on purpose and with purpose. But I think because of the conditioning, societal conditioning, peer pressure, parental pressures, whatever, that gets covered, right? And we go down this path where we start working, we go to school, we go to college, we go to work, we start earning money. And then when you earn money, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm making great money. Am I ready to give this up? And then that there can be a danger in that. But as soon we start to forget that voice that was inside of us. And that's why it's so important to kind of take a step back and go, oh, okay, what's really here? And I think one of the biggest hangups is that even if we know that we want something more, and whatever it is, it could be, you want to, you want a relationship, you need to change a relationship, or you need to make your relationship better. You need more communication or something. Sometimes it's easier to just say, it's easy. I don't want to deal with it, right? Because it takes work. But when you're equipped with the tools, then it makes it so much easier. And that can't come until you take a good hard look at what's really going on. Take a look at the habits, right? And then you can set your intentions. And then from there, you create the plan, you focus, and that gives you the tangible results. But anything, whether it's trying to, get to an up level to another position in your career without completely stressing yourself out or burning out in the process, part of the burnout is because you don't have the tools. You aren't clear on that and you don't have the tools. So you're just hustle, hustle, hustle and do all these things that I think I'm told to do. But then what happens if someone passes you over for someone else? So it's just really getting clear on what the motives are too behind that. And then what do you really want?
I love this. So thank you for sharing your model for getting clarity on what is going on with your success needs and what you're dreaming about, what you're considering, I think.
Mhm.
And just to review, S is self-assessment. What are the thoughts that you're having? H, what are the habits that you're engaging in that lead to the actions that you're taking? I is getting to the point of setting your intention and really stating what you actually want. F is then focusing
Mhm.
on that intention. And T is developing and going for your tangible result. As you were talking about that, I started to think this is a change model if I've ever heard one, right? That people need to be um, motivated to change. And I guess I'm wondering w- what allows people to be motivated to be at this level of, you know what, I'm up leveling. I'm going to change everything that I've been doing, all of those old habits, that old intention, that old style of me at work or in running my business or being in this partnership with some person. I'm going to change all of that. What provides that extra oomph to say, you know what, I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust the world. I'm going to trust people. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I think that's $1 million question, really, because it can be a little bit different for everybody. And I think that, sometimes it's a matter of whether or not, and hopefully what we do is that we recognize this before it gets to the point of it showing up in our body as disease or major stress, which we know that lands in the body, and stress is the thing that causes much of the disease in the body. So hopefully we get to that point first, or before you go bankrupt, you have major issues financially. And so or you are on the verge of divorce, and it's taking a look at it and saying, okay, is there something that is all of a sudden going to completely just explode in your life or implode that causes you then to say, hey, this is a wake up call. And ideally, the goal is to get to that point first, where you are at a stage where you recognize this isn't right. I feel like I'm putting a square peg in a round hole. Something's not right and something's got to give. And again, that comes back to being honest with yourself and saying, I'm ready. And you know what? Not everybody is ready. Some people will just say, you know what? I'm okay. I can just continue down this road. Okay, so be it. But there's a lot of people that are just at a stage in their life. And I think, it can come in different waves, right? Because I see this at college level too, with kids getting ready to leave college. And it's like, what am I going to do? I have to go out in the world now and have to do this, but I don't really want to do that. I mean, I didn't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do a 9 to 5. I wasn't cut out for a 9 to 5. I knew that. That's why I went into sales initially. So you have to look at that, right? So it's almost like you want to stop and look at that and pay attention to yourself first before you get to the point of, wow, everything's just going haywire. And there are those little signs. They're coming up all the time for us when we're not really in our zone of genius or operating from that zone of genius. And we know when we are, because there's probably a time for anybody when things have been great, whether it's a relationship, whether it's your career, whether it's your health, where you just feel like, oh, I'm in the flow. That felt great. Things felt easy because let's face it, life isn't supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be this hard chore, and neither is business. It should be fun. It should be light. Relationships should be that way. They shouldn't be, yes, they take effort, but they shouldn't be draining, where it's just heavy all the time and you don't want to see your partner and you don't want to have to make the effort to go to dinner. It's just that it shouldn't be that way. And if it's feeling like that, then it's like, okay, do I want to change this? And that's the question. Do you want to change it? Because can you change it? Yes, 100% you can change it if you choose to.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I loved that response. And I'm thinking about the other side, which is when people do decide, you know what, I am going to go with the messages I'm hearing from people and my body and my brain about trying something different and doing the things that I'm predicting are going to be better suited for me and the way I want to live my life. What are the results that you see in your clients and in the people that you help when they are able to make this transition, do the different behaviors, get the goals that they are actually better connected with?
Much lighter energy, not a heaviness, not feeling like you're pushing, 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 because that's the biggest difference. When you're operating from the area that you want to operate, when you're operating as someone who is truly in alignment with themselves, they know what they want, they respect themselves. I think that's a big key part of it, having self respect. And whether it is, just for sticking to your health regimen, whether or not it is eating well, whether it is with your relationship or your career or whatever, having self-respect and having boundaries in place allows you then to operate in that flow and with that sense of ease. And so you start to see this though where people don't feel like they're burning out, because I think that's a huge problem, because instead we're hustling and hustling and trying to do so many things and wear so many different hats and be so many things to so many people that we're neglecting ourselves, neglecting what our own needs are and what that voice is telling us. And so instead we start overdoing things and we forget ourselves, and then we hit burnout. And so the opposite of that, of course, is that you're now operating from a place where you are in alignment with what you want, with what your soul's purpose is. And when we're operating from where our zone of genius is, what our soul's purpose is, it shows up in every area for ourselves. I mean, it's almost like, these people where you walk into a room and you see these people that come in and they're just charismatic. They have this energy about them and things just seem easier. And it's almost like that. It's just everything in life starts to tend to fall into place. And even things that could be problematic, you approach it differently. Your perspective tends to shift. And when your perspective shifts, it just pretty much takes the energy away from things, where it just diffuses that energy so it doesn't have that heaviness or anxiety around it.
Yeah. And I think that's so prevalent in our society these days, where there is the sense of stress looming, and right. So much so. And I love that you have this model and this lived experience of being able to operate from a truer place for yourself and to have success as well. And also to have a lighter path through, which I think is very appealing as a model. And I love the change model that you've described to us as well. Can you describe to us how you work with people and um, your process,
Yeah.
if you would?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do group coaching. I do one-on-one, but I don't do one-on-one as much anymore. I'll do some one-on-one. Usually it's group coaching now, and we do the group coaching simply because I think when everybody comes together in a community like that, you start to realize that, oh, I'm not the only one. Somebody else has that. Somebody else has a version of this. And you obviously feed off of each other, and you learn quite a bit from each other that way as well. So I think that's helpful in motivating people. So I do the group coaching. I do have a membership that will be opening soon. And then I also do, when I'm working with companies, or if I'm speaking into school and such, a lot of times I'll go in and I'll do that. And we'll do a talk that sometimes we'll offer a workshop from that talk as well for the company or for the school, the students and such.
Terrific, terrific. And how do our listeners stay in touch with you and find you and connect with you?
They can find me at kimkellythompson.com. So that's Kelly with two E's,
Mhm.
Kim Kelley, Kelley, Thompson.com. And I'm on all the socials at Kim Kelley Thompson as well. And then I do have a challenge that's coming up for people. And this challenge is really designed to help them get clear on what they feel might be missing in their life and get clear on what their purpose is and what it is that they truly want to go after, and then creating the plan in order to do that as well. And so that's called the Clarity Shift Challenge.
I love it. We are going to have the links in the show notes for you, and you can get to the information through kimkellythompson.com,
Mhm.
her main website. And yeah, please do stay connected with Kim. As you can see, she's a wonderful woman and speaker and thinker and change agent and change coach. I love that. So thank you for sharing your lived experience, and the enthusiasm you have for your work is really very apparent, which I love. I think to be able to love what you do is something that's so valuable. It's so much a part of a person's success. So thank you for representing that today on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, I will tell you that, you know, it's interesting because even though I knew what I wanted to do for a long time, and I think a lot of people do, it's so easy to just get caught up in all those little things, those little nuances, the little self-doubt, the little voice, the mental chatter, all that stuff inside, and find excuse after excuse after excuse, right? That we can hide behind and not go forward. And it's really kind of crazy that we do that. Like, why? Life's too short. Why would we do that? And I think once we can get rid of all of that, it's like, oh, okay, things are just so much easier. And they do flow. One thing I wanted to mention too, and that we can also put in the notes if we want, is that I do have different success archetypes that I've identified, and so I do a quiz. I have a free quiz at identifying what your success archetype is, and if you're blocking your success, and then what to do about it as well.
Terrific. Terrific. I love that because we all are so different in the way we're talking to ourselves and the way we're behaving, but we are all considering for ourselves really what is my zone of genius? Where am I most comfortable? What am I best suited to do? And can I create a life that matches that? And I love that the answer is yes for Kim, and for let it be for all of us as well. I wish everybody who's listening well. I appreciate you spending time with us today. And Kim, thank you so much. You've been a great guest.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
All right, everyone. That's a wrap for today. I will see you next week on the Make Time for Success podcast. Thanks again.